What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for a Tottenham update to get through. And first up, we're going to talk about the manager situation with Conte's future up in the air. We've got a couple of managers to talk about. Let's start off with Mauricio Pochettino. As Graham Bailey says, Pochettino has turned down Chelsea's approach to replace Graham Potter, and understand that Chelsea showed interest late last week and the former Spurs man was targeted, but he was not keen on the move, and Chelsea will not remove Potter without a plan. Is he waiting for a certain job, do you reckon?
Potentially. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we all know that he's been after the Tottenham job. We've heard that when he was at PSG, he did really want to come back, but Spurs couldn't agree a deal with PSG to bring him back. So I think he is probably waiting for it. He probably has heard inklings that, we don't know what's going on with Conte, and there could be an opening. So he knows if he goes to Chelsea, he could be out the door as quickly as he goes in. So at Tottenham, he's probably he'll probably guaranteed at least 18 months. You would have to say, so a bit longer. But yeah, I think for sure he's got his eye on the Tottenham job 100%.
Yeah, do you even think it goes as far as that Daniel Levy and Poch have even had conversations? Because we've heard reports over the past year or 2 years, or ever since he's left us, that Poch and Levy have stayed in contact. I mean, I wouldn't be so surprised if Levy's got on the phone to him being like, look, there's going to be a job here in the summer.
It wouldn't shock me at all. We know Levy has previous for getting in ahead of the game. I remember when we appointed one day Ramos, he got in months before he was in contact with Ramos. I remember over that summer they were chatting with Ramos. There was rumours, and then we ended up sacking Yol in the end. So we've definitely done it before. I think with Mourinho, wasn't it? We were talking to Mourinho a few weeks before we actually sacked Poch. So it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if there's been discussions already.
Yeah. Would he be your one to come in if Conte was to leave?
I think he's the obvious choice. I think there's unfinished business for Pochettino, and I think he's the one manager at least who could immediately get the fans on side, as much as there would still be a bit of disdain if things were to go sour with Conte, with the board and everything. If Poch comes in, I don't see any fans turning on Poch immediately. So I think at least he gets a bit of goodwill immediately. And then hopefully he can maybe right some of the wrongs that he had in his first term.
There is a section of the fan base that don't want Poch back, and they don't want to go back to what they classify as a failed manager that didn't bring in for home any trophies in his time with Spurs. What would you say to them?
I would say that, look, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I would say he definitely wasn't failed. If you think Pochettino failed at Tottenham, I don't know what you've been watching. I don't know what you've been seeing, because Pochettino's been our most successful manager by far in the Premier League era. And I would say that he deserves another crack of the whip. I think even since he's left Tottenham, you look at his time at PSG and now what's happening with Gautier at the moment, it looks very favourably for Pochettino as well. I think that he just needs a second crack of the whip. He loves Tottenham. We know that. He said multiple times since he left Spurs that he wants to finish what he started, and he wants another crack at it to win all those trophies. And I think he deserves a second chance. And I don't see how he was failed, honestly. And I think as well, looking at what's happened at Tottenham, it looks back at his tenure very favourably, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with that wholeheartedly. And if you're going to bring Pochettino back, you know what you're getting in terms of a guy that desperately loves this football club as much as the fans do, and he feels like one of us, you know what I mean? And me personally, he would be my number one choice to bring him back. I mean, it would leave a sour taste in my mouth in terms of Conte leaving at the end of the season, because my number one preference would to keep Conte. But if Conte is going to leave for whatever reason he leaves for, Pochettino will definitely be on my number one choice. And I think that the club is in a different space when Pochettino left as well. And I think we're actually getting a squad together which is not ready to compete just yet, but I think that we can be ready with another transfer window behind us, and I think Pochettino would be a great guy to take that forward. So I would love Pochettino back at the club, but there is another manager linked as well, and let's talk about him, Roberto De Zerbi of Brighton. Only recently joined Brighton, to be fair, but the Telegraph are reporting that Brighton boss Roberto De Zerbi, who has been linked as a potential replacement for Antonio Conte at Tottenham, is now under consideration by Roma, Inter Milan, AC AC Milan and Juventus.
Wow, he's a lot of the Italian clubs, it looks like, are looking at him, and no doubt about it, he's doing a brilliant job at Brighton. What's really impressed me is that he's had games against really big teams where a lot of the times they got like Pascal Gross or right back, or they're playing with no defensive midfielder because Caicedo was pushing for a transfer, and yet they're still getting performances out of these teams, good attacking performances as well. And you know, a lot of the time they don't have a good striker. Like I know Evan Ferguson is a youngster. They've got Danny Welbeck, who's not the most prolific striker, and they've played with a false nine sometimes, and yet they still seem to find ways of opening up teams.
And they lost Trossard.
They lost Trossard, and they haven't. That doesn't seem to hurt them. The football they play is absolutely brilliant, and he's doing a fantastic job. And he plays good football wherever he's been. He seems to be a very good coach who knows what he wants from his team. So he's definitely one who I would heavily consider. He's really taken over from Potter and probably done even better than Potter, to be honest, at the moment, the way the team is playing. So fair play to him. Obviously, it's a short period of time, so you don't want to be full foul of maybe him being the flavour of the month kind of thing, and then you could, because there's. I remember Potter goes through periods. I'm not saying I don't like Potter, but Potter goes through periods where they're playing Brighton playing unbelievably, and then they go a long stretch without winning, and then people are saying he's not doing a good job, and then they'll go back to good form. So at the moment they're doing brilliantly. I want to see him over a whole season first before I really consider him in the summer like taking over Spurs. But I have to say he's doing phenomenal.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. It's just like, if you take De Zerbi now, I think it's still a massive risk because he hasn't been at Brighton for too long. I actually think maybe even more than a season we would need to see him for, maybe 1 or 2 seasons before we even consider him for our role. And when you're like putting him up against the likes of like maybe Pochettino, I think I'd much prefer Pochettino right now.
For sure, I would as well.
Next up, let's talk about some playing staff now, and we're going to talk about Marcus Thuram, as the Times are reporting that Tottenham are looking for a long-term replacement for Heung-min Son, who can play on the left. They are keen on Marcus Thuram, who will leave Borussia Mönchengladbach this summer on a free transfer. And when you're talking about free transfers, you can't get much better than Marcus Thuram. Yeah,
he'd be brilliant. The only thing is, it would be another left-hand side. I mean, I know Danjuma's probably going to leave at the end of the season, although all that's up in the air at the moment. But if we're looking for a long-term replacement for Son, he definitely fits the bill. We do have Richarlison, we do have Danjuma right now, so it's hard to like look at Thuram and think he's going to be a massive upgrade on what we have. But I do think that he would definitely add quality to the squad, especially if Danjuma is to leave and maybe Richarlison becomes a striker under either a new manager or next season. Then Thuram would definitely be a fantastic option for Tottenham. I just get the feeling that Thuram will look at Spurs and think, I could go somewhere else and be their number one player, and he comes to Spurs and he's battling with Son, he's battling with Richarlison. Is he guaranteed playing time? And he's probably looking at Richarlison and Danjuma right now and thinking, if I'm not guaranteed the time, like, is it the right place for me? Because at the moment where they're preferring Son at the moment, is he a better player than Son? I think right now he's not, but over the long term, he probably is. So I feel like it's right player, wrong time in a way for Thuram, as much as I want him. For him anyway, I think it's right player, wrong time. But I think if we can convince him to come, it would be a great signing. Yeah,
I would love to get Thuram through the door. Every time I've seen him play over the last year or year and a half, I think he's been brilliant. He had really good cameos at the World Cup as well, coming off the bench and really impacting games. I think he'd be brilliant. Not only can he play off the left, he can play down the middle as well. And when you're talking about maybe a manager like De Zerbi or Pochettino coming through the door for next season, I think he'd be perfect in that kind of system, pressing from the front, high intensity. I think he'd be absolutely perfect for what we need. And when you're looking at potentially Danjuma and Lucas Moura going out the door at the end of the season, I think he'd be a massive step up from either of those two players. So that's Marcus Thuram. Let's move on and let's talk about Clement Lenglet now, as Sport are reporting that Tottenham have shown an interest in turning Clement Lenglet's loan deal from Barcelona into a permanent move. I'm not too sure about this one, to be fair. I mean, it's not the most reliable publication, Sport, but if it is true, I don't really agree with it. I'm not the biggest fan of Lenglet, to be fair.
I think Lenglet started his career at Tottenham fairly well, but for me, the last few months, he hasn't really convinced me, and we're looking for like consistent performances from him. And in this league, I feel like he too often gets bullied. He's too often losing ground duels, and especially aerial duels as well. And that worries me a bit. I still think with his ability on the ball is fairly decent, and when he gets into the final third, he's okay. And I also think that he has good anticipation, but I just don't think he's the player that we want him to be. I think we want him to be like the answer for us at left centre back, and I just think he's still showing the same frailties unfortunately showed at Barca, and you were hoping that maybe he can become a better defender here, and I just don't think that's happened so far. And I would much rather buy someone else than spend money on Lenglet. I'd much rather just keep Davis and spend big money rather than sign Lenglet, and then I don't know. I don't see us selling Davis, to be honest. So I just think it hasn't really worked out. I don't think he's been a massive failure. I just don't think he's been good, like great.
Yeah, you're looking at defenders to take our defence onto the next level. Yeah, he's not that guy. He's kept it at the same level, let's be honest. And for me, I just think he's not aggressive enough and way too passive, in my opinion. And for the defensive capabilities that you need in the Conte system, that you would potentially need in maybe even a Poch system as well, I just don't think he's that guy. And I prefer to get someone way more of the mould of like Cuti Romero or someone like that. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I agree. Someone younger, a bit hungrier, and a bit more aggressive as well.
Yeah.
So I really wanted Lenglet to come in and show me that, because everyone was like at the beginning when we signed him on loan, everyone was sort of shitting on it a bit. And you know, I was hopeful that maybe he could surprise a few people, but I just think he hasn't. Yeah.
Next up, let's talk about Lucas Moura now, as reports out in Turkey from a publication called Sabah are saying that Fenerbahce are finalising terms to sign Lucas Moura immediately. The player has been offered a 3-year contract and Tottenham are willing to let him go on a free. Fenerbahce have until the 5th of March to complete the deal as their transfer window was extended. It's interesting, isn't it?
So maybe we could sell him before the Turkish window is closed. That would be interesting. I mean, at this point, you might as well keep him, in my opinion, to the end of the season. I guess if you get a bit of money, it makes sense.
No, they're saying for free.
Then you might as well keep him. Because we could do with another option on the right-hand side. He's the only one, apart from Kulusevski, who's more of a natural on the right. So I don't see the use in selling him right now.
If we were gonna get rid of Moura, surely we could have kept Gil.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see the need to get rid of Hill and Moura. I mean, you've got to keep one of them at least.
I agree. I wouldn't get rid of him. I don't think. Look, I'm not saying we need him and he's like a great option for us, but I just think if we were letting go on free in the summer, you might as well just keep him until the summer, just in case.
Also,
maybe we get an injury.
With our injury record that we've had this season, I mean, if we have a repeat of the injuries that we had first half of the season, we're going to need him
for sure.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be too fussed if he left, but I think in terms of squad depth, we probably should keep him till the end of the season. And last but not least, the goalkeeping situation. Estadio Deportivo are reporting that Tottenham are leading the competition to find Sevilla goalkeeper Yassine Bounou. The two teams are willing to begin the negotiations at around £20 million.
I mean, he was brilliant in the World Cup, but for me, if I want a long-term replacement for Hugo, and as much as he's a good keeper, I don't know if he's the one I'm looking at thinking we've solved our goalkeeper problems for the long term.
31, 32?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good keeper. He is a good keeper, but I'd rather go for someone younger who's going to really be our goalkeeper for a long time and can really grow at Tottenham. I feel like he's just a stopgap. And I guess, look, if we can't find anyone of the required quality, then I guess he could be a good stopgap. But I'd rather really push the boat out and get someone a bit younger with higher quality. Yeah,
I mean, for me, David Raya is the name. David Raya is the one I want, and I think that if he's attainable for a fair price, I mean, I'd even go to say I'd pay up to like 35 million for David Raya if we could. I know his contract is running down, isn't it? And they're trying to hold him down to one, but I think he's the one that we should desperately be getting. Good with his feet, good shot stopper as well, quite commanding. I don't see a reason why we shouldn't be going for David Raya. I really don't. I like especially with the age as well.
Yeah, 27. He's got a lot of years ahead of him.
Yeah. But that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding any of the news stories we brought to you today. Let us know as well, would you like to see Pochettino back at the football club, or would you maybe your preference lie with a Roberto De Zerbi? Let us know in the comment section below. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.